Would you like to get out of the matrix of your mind? If yes, put that in the comments. I know I did. So let me share with you how I learned practical and sustainable ways to respond to life. Hi, I'm Lisa, a certified life coach specializing in mindset shifting, Reiki master teacher, energy healing, and intuitive guide. My journey towards personal growth began from mental stress in 2009. And I learned to look at my inner narrative, the beliefs I was running on repeat, and how my emotions affected it all with an endless feedback loop of information I was missing until I decided to change. Welcome to my show. We're here for a human experience where we learn how to navigate our mind, body, and spirit connections. So, who wants to learn practical ways to navigate their life? Type yes. If you have questions, also please put them in the comments. And if this resonates with you, please share with others who may benefit from today's show. So, we're going to talk about the law of attraction. Change your thoughts, change your life, or change your focus, change your life. What you put out, you get back. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, one of the first books, one of the first information I found was the book The Secret. And of course, it does talk about the law of attraction. And we actually use the law of attraction all day, every day. And we don't even know that we're using it because what we put out, we get back. And it exhibits in our external world and our internal world. Law of attraction, I find it brings the awareness to what we are thinking and feeling. It helps us to notice the repetitive narratives that's going on. And if we're saying statements like, why does this always happen to me? Or why can't I catch a break? And then go, see? When stuff happens and it's like, oh, why do we... So we say those things, we put that energy out there, and then we wonder, why that's happening, because what we put out we get back. So it is our thoughts and emotions is the law of attraction. There's a few universal laws, and law of attraction is one of them. There's another one, cause and effect, and all that kind of fun stuff that helps us navigate our life. So if we're saying those statements, it means that we are probably on an endless feedback loop that isn't helpful to us, especially if we're saying that. And if we want to get into that awareness, then it is asking ourselves the questions. I always go there. Ask ourselves the questions. We want to notice what our negative thought is, or our, I shouldn't say negative thought. What is it, something that we're not happy with, or we want to change in our life, to something that we prefer. So we need to look at, and law of attraction helps us to understand that what we put out, we get back. So if we're describing our life in a less than desirable manner, or describing a situation in a less than desirable manner, it creates this whole feedback loop. It also makes us feel potentially not great, right? We start to shallow breathe. There's many things that are going on in our body that is trying to tell us, hey, stop doing that, especially when our body starts to contract. And believe me, I totally understand that. Been there, did that in 2009 when it was just this whole overwhelmed feeling. So as I got into the law of attraction, it was that awareness of, oh, when we connect the thoughts and our emotions, oh, it helps to release. First, we get the understanding of what's going on. Secondly, we get to release those held emotions. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, right? Because we've opened up a door to awareness. So law of attraction helps us do that. And if you are, and it's that I want to be conscious and aware. And really that's what my decision was in the beginning of, and is always that decision, is I want to be conscious and aware. Does it mean that I'm conscious and aware all the time? No, it doesn't. But I want to do it as much as I possibly can. I want to live in the now moment. I want to be mindful of what my thoughts and my emotions are trying to tell me. Because if I'm just letting my emotions run amok and my thoughts run amok, it usually doesn't feel very good, right? And then usually what happens is that we're saying, "Oh yeah, see what happens? Yeah, that I knew that was going to happen. That always happens." We create that energy feedback loop of putting out that energy and getting the same back, and then going, "Yeah, look at it." Lots of times we think we're also positive, and for me that was it. I mean, I'm a relatively happy person. I have my moments, of course, because who doesn't? But I thought, that I was using positive words. And when I actually started to dig into it and look at the words I was using to describe anything in my life, whether that was work, going to for groceries, it doesn't matter. How I describe it and how I feel about it puts that energy out there, and that's when the law of attraction. That's when the law of attraction works. Like I said, it's always working, though. It is always working. So listen to your words as you describe your issue, because the words that we use have energy to them. We can use higher vibe words or lower vibe words. And for me, I was using, well, both, back and forth. And until I started to look into it and start to understand what I was saying, I was like, wow, okay, oh, I could actually say that better, right? So I started to look at that, and so be mindful of that. And it doesn't mean that we're doing it all the time. We run through our lives, running on our subconscious mind, and Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about it as a sleepwalking. So 95% of the time we spend sleepwalking in their subconscious on autopilot, which is fine. Because of course that helps us brush our teeth, that helps us drive, that helps us do many things that we don't need to think about. But if we spend most of our life like that, and then our repetitive thoughts that we don't prefer, or the emotions that we're not that keen on, it just keeps it going, right? So the more that we become aware of what we're thinking and feeling, the better off it is for us, because now we can make different choices and we can decide how we want to speak and feel about ourselves and the world in general. So we want to notice how we're feeling. I want to notice where I'm feeling it in my body, especially if I'm getting tight and crunchy. I want to know. And I remember when we used to talk about gossip per se, but not really gossip. It was just we were venting all the time. And when you're venting all the time, it's actually not resolving things. You feel like it's getting stuff off your chest if it only did that. But then we'll tell the next person, and next thing you know, we're shallow breathing. We're not feeling that great. And that's exactly what happened to myself in those situations. It was just this repetitive venting, which didn't help. There wasn't any solutions. We just vented about it, right? So it's not helpful. So if we can vent and then let it actually go, fantastic. But we don't do that because we like to hold on to things. So as we're looking at those venting subjects, that's a good indicator of maybe you want to look at that a little bit differently, change your perspective on it, see how you're in those venting sessions, how your thoughts are, the words you're using, the emotions that are coming out of you, and how it's really making you feel. One of the things, and I will always come back to this as well, is for me when in the beginning, before I get on that, for me in the beginning, at one point I'm just like, okay, so how can I always talk to my higher self, so I can actually say that I'm having a meeting with me, myself, and I, and we all can, of course. But as I asked, I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do here to check in with myself? And so the words were, well, just ask yourself how you're feeling. And I'm like, okay, good point. I'll just ask. Weird concept, but okay. How do I feel? How am I feeling? And every time I ask that question, even as I'm telling this story, my body wants to stop and take a nice deep breath, because that brings me back into myself, my awareness, and I'm like, oh, okay, how am I feeling? Well, actually, I feel pretty good. right? Or I don't, or whatever. But at least I'm checking in with myself, so I'm putting the attention on me instead of everything outside of me. Law of attraction. You need to look at you. So, one of the wonderful things that I like to do, and people will always say, I'm so busy, I can't do this, I don't have time for that, and push the stuff aside. We all do it. It's not a big deal. However, if it starts to become a problem where it's bubbling up to the surface all the time, that is an indicator of the law of attraction, your guides, your higher self saying, you may want to look at this situation. So take 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes in the day to focus on you. Focus on you. So when you put the focus on you, I'm going to take a deep breath because I'm now focused on me, and my body and my mind are craving that recognition of, hey, I can look at myself. I can actually assess myself and ask myself how I'm feeling. I ask everybody else that, but I rarely ask myself that. So we need to ask ourselves, how am I really feeling? Take the 15 minutes, uninterrupted time, and I will tell, moms will be like, I don't have time for that. Get the kids to do the same thing so that they can understand that it's okay to have some quiet time to reflect and ponder and sort out our emotions and our thoughts. Super important, super important. So when you're taking your 15 minutes, whether that's the morning, afternoon, or in the evening, write it down, take a piece of paper, write it down, be honest with yourself, pose the question out there of how am I feeling, what am I thinking about this situation, and then take your 15 minutes and just breathe and reflect. And you don't even have to reflect, but just take that time for your body to relax. And I know when we have to, because we're so used to shallow breathing, it does take a few deep breaths, mindful breaths of expanding our belly deep down. And it usually takes me about 5 deep breaths to get that right down. And so then my body, as we take the deep breaths, we're oxygenating our blood, of course, we're actually processing better, and our body starts to relax, our mind starts to quiet, and we can actually now effectively look at our life in that moment better and more consciously and aware. What happens is when we take the moment, the 15 minutes to reflect on what's going on in our life, it starts to build a new pattern of behavior that, first of all, that says, yes, you're worthy, yes, you're important, yes, your opinion matters, yes, you are valued. You have to value yourself first, right? So as we're doing that, it's also creating new neural pathways. So if we're in that rut state, it just keeps connecting in that rut state. And when something, somebody says something and it prompts an experience, a remember when, and all of a sudden we're going through that hole and we're reliving it, and that's good and bad as well. It doesn't matter, heavy and light. It's both ways. But what happens is if we're looking at things that we're not that keen on, of things that we don't prefer, right? The repetitiveness of, when we're looking at that, it's built a pretty good neural pathway. But as we start to go, okay, well, this is what I don't prefer, I want to start building what I do prefer. And then it's going to break out the one neural pathways. It'll release them. It doesn't harm you. It doesn't harm you. It just changes the neural pathways and creates the new neural pathways that you are instilling and installing in your brain. So what do we have to do? So we have to recognize what we don't like or don't prefer. And then as that, what is it? That's why I like to put it on a piece of paper. What is it? So then I have more awareness of it, more clarity of it. And okay, so it's like, this is what it is. So now what's my new pattern? What would I like to do instead? What do I prefer? Right? We have to, if we're going to change a neural pathway and change habits and beliefs and patterns, we have to have a new one to put in there, because otherwise we're just going to keep rolling down the same path or the same rut, right? So we want to notice that and be aware of, I need to put in a new habit. And basically we all know We probably know this statement. It's either which end of the stick do you want, right? The good end of the stick or the shit end of the stick. Life is that. What do I prefer? What do I not prefer? So, because it's always the balance of, I don't like this, I like this. How do I make more of this? I need to have that awareness. And sitting with yourself for 15 minutes a day just to help you bring that clarity and that understanding. It's a guilt-free, no judgment, no critical judging, none of that. It's guilt-free so that you can actually understand what's going on for you in these situations. And we always want to bring in the emotions. I want to know how I'm feeling, what I'm feeling. Is it feeling, do I feel stressed out? Is it in a head, like a headache, my neck? What am I tightening up? What is going on as I'm thinking about that? And it's a process of understanding and getting to know you, because that's important. So that we're not, and for me, that was a big one. It's like, I don't even know what I really like. I mean, obviously I know some things I like, but I'm going to dig into it a bit because law of attraction says what I put out there, I get back. So, some of the things that I put out, I'm not that keen on getting back, right? So we want to look at that. And so law of attraction helps with that. So law of attraction helps provide an awareness of our thoughts and our emotions and how they manifest in our lives. We want to notice our repetitive narrative, those comments, statements. Why does this always keep happening to me? We want to recognize our good feelings and our bad feelings, because we need to have both, right? Recognize both of those emotions, both of those thoughts. We don't want to judge to criticize, and we want to check in with ourselves daily. And even throughout the day, just ask yourself, how am I feeling? Our body and mind want that connection. And really they do. They totally do. I can speak from experience there. It was just like when I brought that all together, it was like, oh, yay, yay. And it is a process. So when you feel out of control, remember to breathe and come back from your fight, flight, or freeze. And you don't have to allow your thoughts or emotions to take control. And everything is a choice in our life. What we prefer and what we don't prefer. We just have to break it down. And if that makes sense for you and that resonates for you, put that yes in the comments. So join me next week as we transform our thoughts and emotions and navigate the matrix of our mind, body, and spirit connections. And remember, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way you are right. Bye for now, everyone. See you next week.